You're right about one thing that changes everything. Kafka physically implants a Stellaron into the Trailblazer at the very beginning. You literally watch the handoff. So here's the real twist. What if the Stellaron is both a physical object and the most dangerous kind of concept in the Star Rail universe? A causality editing payload that needs a body to run. Not a magic rock. A portable anchor for a world rewriting infection. And if that's true, the scariest character in this story isn't Nanook. It's the Trailblazer. Because they aren't special. They're a container. Today's theory is simple, but it reframes every Stellaron incident. A Stellaron is a physical anchor that carries a reality-warping payload. A cancer that executes differently depending on the world it infects. The anchor is what Kafka can implant. The payload is what turns civilizations into disasters. And the Trailblazer? The lore strongly points to them being built for this. An artificial body designed to host a Stellaron and resist contamination. So instead of asking, why can the Trailblazer survive a Stellaron? Start asking, who designed a person to safely hold a universe-level infection? The cancer of all worlds. Wording isn't flavor text. The IPC didn't label this thing the cancer of all worlds because it sounded edgy. That phrasing points to a specific behavior. It spreads like a cancerous growth, overwhelms worlds, and leaves very few survivors. That matters because cancer isn't just destruction. It's uncontrolled replication of something that shouldn't be there. So if Stellarons were only objects, the story would treat them like rare artifacts. But the lore treats them like an outbreak. Objects are just the part you can hold. The real threat is what they install. The model, Stellaron equals USB drive plus self-executing program. Let's make it concrete. A Stellaron is like a USB drive you can physically carry. But inside that drive is a self-executing program that hijacks the system it's plugged into. So, anchor, the physical Stellaron, implantable, containable, movable. Payload, the phenomenon, reality corruption, fragmentum emergence, civilization collapse, fate bending. That explains why Stellaron incidents can look wildly different while still being the same kind of disaster. Same payload class. Different host, and it explains why Kafka's scene doesn't disprove anything. It confirms Stellarons are portable delivery mechanisms. Kafka's line, that everyone should take literally. Kafka's lore frames her as using Spirit Whisper to set up the Trailblazer to absorb the Stellaron. Not protect it, not destroy it. Absorb it. That's not how you talk about a normal object. That's how you talk about a compatible vessel taking in something dangerous. So the Trailblazer wasn't a random victim. They were the plan. Amphoreus, proof that reality can be constructed like software. Now let's pull in the big lore accelerant, Amphoreus. Amphoreus is described as an isolated sandbox world constructed using memoria and data. A world built from memory and information. That's the moment Star Rail stops being space fantasy and starts being cosmic systems engineering. Because if a world can be built out of data, then a Stellaron payload doesn't need to smash planets. It can rewrite parameters. It can change what causality means inside that world. In a universe where reality can be computed, simulated, and recompiled, a Stellaron starts looking like a hostile patch. Why Stellaron incidents don't repeat. They adapt. Here's the key insight. The Stellaron payload doesn't have one fixed effect. It has a fixed goal. Like malware. Malware doesn't break every device the same way. It uses whatever your system has. Permissions, memory, network access, human behavior. So the Stellaron payload expresses through the world's operating system. On one world, it might manifest as ecological corruption and fragmentum encroachment. On another, it might distort social order, decision-making, or belief structures. In a data/memoria constructed space like Amphoreus, it can attack the foundations. What is real, what is remembered, What is inevitable? Same family of infection. Different symptom map. That's why you can't just destroy the rock. You have to stop the runtime. The Trailblazer isn't lucky, they're engineered. Now we hit the uncomfortable part. The lore implies the Trailblazer's body is artificial and created specifically to host a Stellaron, making them immune, or at least highly resistant, to Stellaron contamination. This turns the Trailblazer into something terrifyingly specific, a living containment unit, not a chosen one, a designed one. And that reframes the entire premise of the Astral Express. Because the Express isn't just traveling to solve disasters, it's traveling with a walking quarantine chamber on board. So here's the question you should be asking every time a faction smiles at the Trailblazer. Are they helping you? Or are they positioning you? What the Stellaron Hunters really are. If Stellarons are portable anchors for a causality hack, then the Stellaron Hunters aren't collectors. They're operators. People who understand how to deploy an anchor, when the payload will execute, and what the world will look like after the rewrite finishes. They don't hunt Stellarons to stop them. They hunt outcomes. They manage plots. The big prediction: Stellarons are networked. Here's where we push into theory territory. We're not dealing with many separate devices. We're dealing with one distributed system. Each Stellaron is a node, an anchor point, of a larger infection that can propagate, coordinate, and adapt. Which means you shouldn't only fear the Stellaron in your chest. You should fear the moment it phones home. What this sets up for the next major twist. If this theory holds, the next lore bomb won't be where Stellarons come from. It'll be what their payload is optimizing for. 3 possibilities. 1. The payload isn't destruction only. It can align to different paths depending on the operator. 2. The cure isn't removal. It's sandboxing reality so the payload can't execute, Amphoreus style. 3. The Trailblazer isn't the solution. They're the proof of concept that a Stellaron can be weaponized safely. And that last one? That's the nightmare. So yes, Stellarons are physical. Kafka proves that with her own hands. But their true threat isn't what they are. It's what they do. A Stellaron is a portable anchor for a causality rewrite, a cancer that installs itself into worlds and forces reality to obey a foreign script. And the Trailblazer? They're not just carrying a Stellaron. They're carrying the question every faction is too scared to say out loud. If one person can contain the infection, can one person be used to deploy it? If you want part 2, comment which faction you think understands Stellarons best. IPC, Genius Society, the Family, or the Stellaron Hunters. And I'll build the next theory around who's actually closest to the source code.